Now here's your host, Jason Voorhees and Aaron Savage.
Ooh, yeah! Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports and Metal Podcast. We are your hosts. This is Aaron Savage. With me, as always, my partner in crime, Mr. Jason Voorhees. What's going on, Jay?
Hell yeah, brother. We're back.
How are you? We're back and we're bad. Before we get started, we want to thank our sponsors. First and foremost, go to manscaped.com. Manscaped is the league leader, the most valuable player, the Muhammad Ali of below-the-belt grooming. You want to check out Manscaped. It's Christmas time. The holidays are here. Ladies, get your man this. Men, get yourself this for Christmas. If you want to look good, feel good, below-the-belt grooming at its best, Manscaped, go to manscaped.com. Use our promo code SNM. That's the letters SNM as in sports and metal. You're going to get 20% off your order, and you're going to get free shipping to anywhere in the world. So make sure you check out manscaped.com. We also want to thank our other sponsor, La Terrain Watches. That is LA-TOURAINE.com. You're going to go to laterrain.com. Same thing. You're going to use our promo code SNM, as in the letters SNM for sports and metal, and you're going to get 10% off their beautiful handcrafted watches. So check out La Terrain. Anyway, Jay, we're going to introduce a new segment this week to kick off the show. It's called The Rundown. We're going to start doing this every week. It's basically a new segment. We're just going to kind of go through the blips and blurbs in rock and roll and metal over the prior week. So why don't we get started, Jay? You ready?
Oh, definitely.
First and foremost, I know we both were talking about it. We want to say happy birthday to Ozzy, 73 years young. Can you believe Ozzy's 73, Jay?
My God. I mean, honestly, it's funny because I just rewatched the documentary the other day, the 9 Lives of Ozzy. And what a great production. And just like, what can you say about the guy, the Prince of Darkness? I mean,
73.
I can't believe he's still going. I mean,
he's still going. Maybe he's got 10 lives. Anyway, another big news this week. Motley Crue has announced that they've sold their entire catalog, all the masters, to BMG. I'm stuttering tonight, bro. What's up? Anyway, you may remember Motley Crue was one of the few bands that was actually able to get their masters back, I think, in 1999. They got them back from Elektra Records, I think, at the time for $10 million. So this is a nice profit for the Crue. They sold them back, their masters, to BMG for $150 million. So a lot of fans were pissed off. I don't know why. I mean, they're making $150 million, and BMG is going to be able to distribute their catalog all over the place, keep the legacy of the Crue alive. So that's big news. Other big news this week, Rob Halford says that Glenn Tipton is going to be playing on the next Priest album. That's awesome to hear. We all know the health problems that Glenn has had. So to hear he's going to be on the new Priest album, that's big, big news. Rob said he's still a fighter. He never lets anybody down. He's battling Parkinson's, dude. I don't know how he's going to do it.
How's he going to play guitar? I don't know.
They're saying he could do it in the studio. He just can't tour. So it's good to hear that Glenn's going to be on the record. I mean, as much as I love Richie Faulkner, I'd love to have KK back in the band. Obviously, KK's doing his own thing with Ripper.
I mean, I'd love to have all three of them. Could you imagine? Like,
yeah, Maiden did that.
That's what I mean. Like,
yeah.
I mean, listen, obviously KK and Tipton, one of the best duos of all time. I mean, it doesn't get much better than those two, but Faulkner, can hold his own. I'd be curious to see how they'd sound with three.
Me too. And I mean, Richie's been in the band so long now, and he kind of like he exemplifies, KK. They look alike. He's like a younger version. So I think it'd be awesome. And speaking of Maiden, Dave just announced plans for a 2022 North American tour. So Maiden's going to be on tour this coming year. Testament is working on new music. That's a big announcement this week. And Trivium is going to be doing 2 live stream specials in December. I believe one of them, they're going to be playing the entire In Waves album. Do we have a date for that, Jay? I'm not sure.
I didn't see any dates.
I'm not sure, but that is going to be pretty cool. The full In Waves album, Trivium, is going to be doing 2 live stream shows. And, dude, we talked about Manson recently on the podcast. LA sheriffs raided his home in the sexual assault investigation. So the saga continues from Mr. Manson.
I mean, yeah, I don't think there's much more that we could say about
What
that
do you say,
situation,
man?
except
It's a
that
nightmare.
he's in trouble. I mean,
Big
he obviously
trouble,
did some crazy shit. So
yeah, sick shit, bro. Big problems. Anyway, dude, that's the rundown. Why don't we get into some of the big topics we wanted to talk about this week? None bigger than the Major League Baseball lockout, dude. Where are you at with this? It's crazy.
I mean, dude, I remember one of our very first shows. Very first. It might have been the first. And we were talking kind of about, we kind of got the audience to know a little bit about you and I and our backgrounds and how we got into sports and metal. And we talked about baseball and our love for baseball. And I remember you vividly talking about how there was that short period of time where it's not that you weren't a baseball fan, but you really weren't into it as much. And that was right when the strike happened.
Yeah, you're right.
I'll never forget that moment. And how many people like you and I did baseball lose? I mean, I'm not going to lie. And obviously for me, a lot of it had to do with the Phillies. I mean, 93, they won. And then after that, they weren't good, for like 15 years. But still, a lot of the reasons why I got frustrated with baseball was because of that strike. And honestly, they lost a shit ton of money and a lot of fans. And it took a long time. They're still not really repaired 25 years later. So that's a little scary. I don't know.
I mean, to piggyback on what you're saying, you're absolutely right. I mean, you knew me growing up. Baseball was my passion, my love. It was everything for me. I lived and breathed it growing up. I mean, it's all I cared about when I was young. You know that. When the strike happened in 94, now, obviously, it probably wasn't just the strike, but the timing of it was like a perfect storm for me to lose interest in my favorite thing, baseball. Because think about it. 94 was like I was graduating high school. So all of a sudden, even without the strike, my 100% devoted attention to baseball was already going to be, somewhat diminished by my age. In other words, getting a driver's license, girls, parties. I was at the age where there was going to be distractions no matter what. That we all go through that, right? You throw the strike in the mix, it basically made baseball persona non grata for me, dude. Which, when you think about how much baseball meant to me, that's insane, Jay. That's insane to think about. Baseball was everything to me. So if baseball could lose a fan like me at that time, think about what the millions and millions of casual fans that baseball loses with something like that. And I eventually did come back, granted, but that's because I'm a passionate, diehard baseball fan. But I went through a 2 or 3 year period where I really didn't watch it again. It was a perfect storm. The Mets sucked. Don't forget the Mets lost 100 games in 93. Again, I got my driver's license, girls, graduating high school, parties, all those things, the strike, and then the Mets sucking for a few years. Obviously, there was many reasons I stopped watching it, but the strike was the biggest one. And I remember, my good buddy and business partner, James, obviously, his father, Frank, good friend of ours, same thing, diehard baseball fan. And I remember the first time I met him, I don't think he knew I was a diehard Mets fan until after a year of knowing me, because it was when the strike was going on when I met him around that time. And I just didn't even talk about baseball. So it was a whole year went by before this guy, who's also passionate, lives, breathes, and dies Mets, knew I was the same way, because the strike did that. It made it where we weren't even thinking about it. I met this guy a year before he knew we had this thing in common. So that's what the strike did. And that's what baseball's risking doing now. And you know what, dude? I'm always supportive of the players in a sense of they're entertainers. They do things that we don't do, so they deserve to make all this money. It's like you're going to pay to see a movie. You go to see Arnold Schwarzenegger in The Terminator. There's a reason he's making millions and millions of dollars, because you're all going to see him in the movie. They're not going to see me and you. So that's why these guys make the money. I get it. But when it gets to a certain point, when you have Max Scherzer at the age of 37, signing a 3-year deal with the Mets, which, by the way, I'm very pumped about. We could get to that, big week for the Mets. Wow. But anyway, I'm excited as a Mets fan for that, because it's huge. But taking my Mets glasses off and just looking at it from a perspective of the average Joe, the average sports fan in America, You're talking about a 37-year-old guy that just signed a $130 million 3-year contract, bro. Dude, the Mets' entire team payroll in like 1991 was probably $25 million. You have Max Scherzer alone making $43 at the age of 37? And then a week later, there's a lockout over money. It's not going to sit well with the average fan. They don't want to hear about that. They don't want to hear about guys making $40 million a year, and then they're finagling over money and the collective bargaining agreement. But when they got to go work 9 to 5s, or they're unemployed because of COVID, the fans don't want to hear it. It's disgusting. It's going to kill the sport. I'm sorry. Go on, Jay.
No. I mean, Aaron, I love when you rant, and I'm the same way, dude. I am so frustrated. Like, I mean, look at some of these numbers. So I look back to the strike in '94 because I was kind of curious. So I wanted to kind of do some research and go back because I don't really remember it. It was a long time ago. And dude, so think about this: that strike, which lasted almost a full year, like from when
it was the first time the World Series wasn't played in like 80 years. Yeah,
because it kind of went down at the end of August, and then they basically did away with the rest of the season, canceled playoffs, and they didn't come back until '95. They started spring training late, if you remember.
Yeah.
So, dude, that strike cost, and this is 25 years ago, $580 million the owners lost during that strike, $230 million in player revenue. And the average baseball salary in 1994 was $1.2 million. Dude, think about that. And think about how you hit it on the head. How bad of a look is it that a lot of these guys just signed, including Scherzer. There was other ones that signed $100 million contracts.
Yeah.
And now they're on strike. It's
average annual value contracts for $25 to $45 million.
It's so frustrating to me, Aaron. And I was looking at some of the sticking points that they've been talking about. And one of the main sticking points that they can't agree on that basically has led to this lockout is the fact that the players believe that guys should be teams can't have control of a player. It's a 1-year difference that they can't agree on. So
the big sticking point what you're kind of getting at is players want to be able to reach free agency sooner, and they also want to be able to make more money earlier in their careers.
Yeah, but it's a 1-year difference as far as years. The players, the league wants it at 6. The players want it at 5. Dude, are you kidding me? You can't come to an agreement and just say, okay, well, maybe we'll do a happy medium. We'll make it 6. And, if the player's over a certain age, because they were using a player like Jeff McNeil as an example that came up at age 26. And he doesn't want to go past 30 to be able to
reach free agency.
So why not make a year threshold where, okay, the guy, dude, I find it hard to believe that they can't come to an agreement on that. I just think it's ridiculous. It's almost like
it's just a bad look. Dude, it's a bad look. I mean, I can see the players' points in that sense. The McNeil example is a good example, actually. Because there is a difference between a guy hitting free agency at the age of 26, 27, 28, which we see a lot of these players, versus a guy like a Jeff McNeil or even like some other guys that came up later in their careers. When I think of the Phillies, Ryan Howard and Chase Utley weren't exactly young rookies. So those are the type of guys, and they ended up making their money. But yeah, certain guys hit free agency at later years. It's a fair point. But here's the problem. We're not talking about guys that are like working in like terrible conditions and not making money. It's unions. Unions are like breaking and destroying this country. When unions began, it was to protect employees from piss poor working conditions, working slave wages and slave hours. We don't have these problems in this country anymore. So now you have greedy unions that are just trying to rake every dime out of everything. And it's no longer to protect an employee from, incomprehensibly bad working conditions. And that's where the crux of the problem is. These unions are just too strong. So for every example of the McNeil example, which I'll admit is a good example, there's so many thousands of other examples that are like just are the other way around that make it like just a disgusting look. And you know what, dude? Let's be honest here. Right off the bat, I was thinking, well, 94, it was a strike. This is a lockout. So it is different, but it's almost the same because it's still about player greed, in my opinion. It still really is. Dude, think about it. It's not even just that. Here's another example. Players are like looking for these giant short-term average annual value deals now. So like now, guys aren't looking to get – there was a time where players were looking to get 7, 8, 9, 10-year deals because they wanted that security. They don't want that now. Now they want really short deals with jacked up annual rates and average annual values so they can hit free agency again in 2-3 years.
More. Exactly.
Yeah, and they have these opt-outs. At what point is enough? I mean, I know I go back to what I originally said. I'm not trying to be the get off my lawn guy. I know that these guys deserve to be paid as entertainers because that's what they are at the end of the day. But when is enough? Especially with everything that goes on in this country, you know, with people that are unemployed, people that are laid off, you know, people struggling with the pandemic. And then you're going with all this nonsense when, like we just said, guys are signing these deals. How disgusting was it that right before the lockout, you had this frenzy of free agent signings? Well, guys getting $25 million average annual contracts. Marcus Stroman, and let's bring the Mets into it again. Love the guy as a Met. He was very good last year. But is he that good? Dude, if you look at his numbers and you go in years past, he'd be your fourth starter at best. But that just goes back to the way the game is played now. So now we're paying pitchers $40 million a year, $25 million a year to pitch 6 innings. That's a whole other thing we could get into. They're like, they're not even working for the money as much as they used to because they're baby and they hardly pitch. I can go on and on.
I'm not gonna lie, dude. Yeah, we could do a whole show on just this segment. But honestly, like, I am concerned because I mean, Max Scherzer saying that he's not going to agree unless the league budges and gets, the players get what they want. And that concerns me. And I guess the biggest frustration out of it all is I remember doing the show last year with you, 2020, when the COVID first came down. And remember, we were just so frustrated because we just wanted baseball. We wanted the country to open back up.
Yeah, and they were doing the same shit then. They couldn't come to an agreement.
Yeah, that's my problem. They just went through this, and then the owners cried afterwards how much money they lost, and this is why we're not spending money. But yet, then you come out and you spend the money, and now
it's still not good enough.
It doesn't make sense, dude. It's all over the freaking place. Like, it's frustrating.
Well, dude, you knew Max Scherzer's going to be a guy that's talking up like this, and he's not going to budge because he's one of those spokespeople, for the Players Association.
I understand
that's why he also had to sign the highest contract. Max Scherzer, let's be honest, a guy that's representing the Players Union, he's got to sign for the highest dollar because he's got to set that precedent for his union members.
I get that.
That's how unions are destroying the country, though. It's terrible.
My point is that, like, how long do you see this going? I mean, what's your honest opinion?
My honest opinion is I think that both sides are going to be smart enough to realize that they're going to destroy the game if they don't come to an agreement soon enough. Look at the popularity of the NFL. Look at the popularity of the NBA. There was a time where baseball was the most popular sport in this country, and there was no other sport close, including the NFL. And there are reasons that has changed. One of which is the game being a slower game in an ADD culture. Everybody's looking for instant gratification. So sports like basketball and the NFL lend themselves well to ESPN highlights. You know what I mean? Oh, and here comes Kyrie with the dunk. Oh, look at that. Whereas you don't get as much of that in baseball. It's not designed for highlights. It's not. It's a different type of game. So some of it is just generational demographics. It's become an older man's game because kids today don't have an attention span, and baseball requires it. But knowing that, why alienate your fan base further and make it impossible for younger fans to get into the game by having labor strife where you're not even fucking playing? And we went through this last year, like you said. So I hope that they're going to see it this way. And if they want to have the game be as strong as it needs to be and as it should be, because it is a great game, they're going to have to come into agreement. Because the damaging the game any further than it's been damaged, it gets to a point, is it irreparable? I mean, and we're not even getting into the other things that drive me nuts, the rule changes and all the nonsense, and the other things like, oh, they want to make the game speedier, to cater to the younger generation that doesn't have the attention span. But yet we're doing replays every fucking 10 minutes and the umpires are standing on the side for 15 minutes so you're just making the game slower. So there's so many things wrong with the game. The last thing they need is a long lockout. It's the last thing they need. So I think they'll come to an agreement. What do you think?
So just explain for everybody the difference between a lockout and an actual strike.
Well,
Like,
a strike is the players are on strike. A lockout is the owners are locking the players out because they don't have a collective bargaining agreement. So in other words, this isn't the players striking. The owners are locking the players out. And I know you mentioned something earlier that I've been so busy with work, I didn't even realize. You had pointed it out to me, how MLB had wiped all the players' images off of MLB.com.
Yeah.
So I read the article really quick that you sent me. And, to the point that I'm making, the reason they did that is because there's a lockout. So they can't legally make money off of any player images or likenesses because there's no collective bargaining agreement. So it wasn't like to slight the players. It was just because there's no collective bargaining agreement, they can't legally use the players' likenesses to make profits. So they had to wipe the players' faces off. So I know you talking about on Twitter, a lot of players had deleted their images.
They were doing it to make fun.
They were doing it in jest. They were doing it in jest. Yeah, they weren't doing it like to say F you to the owners. It was more of just, hey, am I still allowed to be on Twitter?
So if you remember back to the 94, 95, strike, remember the president had to get involved. The president of the United States.
Congress was involved. I mean, it was a big deal.
Could that happen here?
I don't think it's going to get that far. I don't think it's going to get that far.
I'm just saying, say it went into next year and they were going to cancel.
At some point, the government would get involved.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they got involved in the NFL's labor strife recently. I will say one more thing before we move on about that 94 season. What a shame that was for the city of Montreal. You want to talk about another way that the sport was damaged and destroyed from that strike in 94 was that Montreal lost their baseball team. Because let's be honest, there was a time where Montreal was a great baseball town. They would sell out Olympic Stadium all the time. The Expos were a very popular team. Think of some of the great players that came through the Expos: Gary Carter, Hubie Brooks, Tim Wallach, Tim Raines. I mean, great ball players in Montreal. Anyway, Montreal was leading the division by a wide margin in 94 and were definitely a favorite to win the World Series that season. And the strike wiped it out, and they never recovered. And a few years later, they were off to Washington to become the Washington Nationals. Rest in peace, Montreal Expos. One of the biggest casualty of the 94 strike.
There was quite a few casualties. I remember, I believe it was Matt Williams had 47 home runs, and there were still 2 months left.
Bagwell was another one. Jeff Bagwell.
I think Tony Gwynn was hitting 395 and could have maybe possibly hit 400 and been the latest player.
You're kind of stepping into a next subject that I was kind of going to get into when I talked about how the 94 strike almost destroyed the sport, but how it kind of came back a few years later. Wow. When that did come back, it seemed so great. But who knew the ramifications a few years later? And you know what I'm talking about. Those seasons that you're referring to, even 94, I mean, let's be honest, I'm sure it was steroids. I'm sure steroids had a lot to do with like Jeff Bagwell's season in 94. Jeff Bagwell's a guy that was never proven guilty, but I don't think either one of you would sit here and look at each other with a straight face and say Jeff Bagwell didn't juice. I think we both think he did. Anyway, long story short, what brought the game back after that strike? It was steroids. The big home run race with McGuire and Sosa, which it was like saving the game. Baseball, the most popular sport again. And then they almost destroyed themselves again because of that. Here we go. I digress. Do we need another fucking lockout? Any more damage to the game? We don't need it. No, we don't. We don't need it, dude.
Speaking of resurgence.
Yeah. The Patriots. Dude, the Patriots are like fucking cockroaches, man. The Patriots are like the Keith Richards of the National Football League. You can't kill them. They won't die. Dude, there's going to be nuclear Armageddon. And the only 3 things that are going to be left are cockroaches, Keith Richards, and the Patriots.
Well,
dude,
it's crazy to me because just last year, Tom Brady said, "Hold my beer" to Bill Belichick. And now Bill Belichick saying, "Time to clap back."
Yeah.
Here's the clapper.
Yeah. Dude, I mean,
because honestly, like, if you think about it, they're always going to be interlinked. So obviously you're going to have 2 facets and 2 sides of it. You have your side that feels, oh no matter what, the only reason, the Patriots succeeded was because of Tom Brady. And so Tom Brady goes to Tampa and bang, he wins the Super Bowl right away.
Yeah.
So those people are like, told you so, told you so.
That's all Brady. Nothing to do with Belichick. Yeah,
exactly. And so meanwhile, like the other side of people are like, oh shit. So what does Bill Belichick do? I mean, Bill Belichick is a genius, and we all agree he's the GOAT of GOATs in coaching. He is. And so he drafts a guy that many people were saying, Mac Jones is not a quarterback in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
We want Justin Fields or we want this guy or this. The problem is that Mac Jones is a pro-style quarterback. So a lot of people saw this coming at it. There were two sides. There were some people that were like, Mac Jones is going to be a total, flop in the NFL. And there was other people that said, no, this guy is legit. He's the most ready now to come into his system and, win right away. And bingo, it's just been like an amazing change of events, in New England. Obviously they're 8-4 right now. They're on a 6-game winning streak. I mean, this is their last 6 games. They beat the Jets 54-13, beat the Chargers 27-24. That was the only close game. Panthers 24-6, 45-7 over the Browns, 25-0 over the Falcons, and then 36-13 over the Titans. So they are smacking people down, dude.
Dude, they have I'm doing a double check, but I'm pretty sure they have the best point differential in the NFL. And I think right now they're the number 1 seed in the AFC.
I believe you're right.
Yeah.
I didn't look at the point differential.
Maybe Ravens are 8-3, Pats are 8-4, so Ravens would be.
Yeah.
But dude, let me look at point differential here. Yeah. Patriots 336 points for and 190 points allowed. I mean, dude, they're just back to juggernaut status, bro. Dude, they have the second most points in the conference. And they've allowed the least points. No, second least. The Bills have allowed slightly less. But anyway, the bottom line is, dude, this is a team that was left for dead just a year ago, dude. A year ago. Here they are. Dude, the bottom line is it's about coaching and it's about putting the players you have in the best position to win. And you know what? It's going to kind of parlay into my next point. People are already talking about Mac Jones being a system quarterback. I was listening to ESPN this morning, and I don't remember who said it, but somebody said Mac Jones is the perfect quarterback for this system. And it got me thinking. I don't think there's a term I hate worse than system quarterback. I think it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. It makes no sense. It's just dumb. What is a system quarterback? It's dumb. Dude, here's what my point is. Doesn't every team have their own system? Whatever offense you're running, that's your system. Now, whether or not you drafted the right guy to perform in the system that you run doesn't make the quarterback that you have a system quarterback. It just means that you drafted a quarterback or you acquired a quarterback via trade or free agency that you felt fits best into the system that you run. I look at that as just good coaching. In other words, anytime you're coaching any type of player, you want to coach that player and put them in the best position to succeed, right? Think about it. Absolutely. You wouldn't put a small receiver like Mike Wallace on your offensive line, right? I'm just giving an extreme example because linemen have a certain build and a certain skill set to be linemen. Wide receivers have a certain skill set to be wide receivers. And then with wide receivers, some guys are more suited to the slot. Some guys are taller and they're more suited to be your big playmaker in the end zone. The bottom line is you put your players in the best position to win. Now, we talked about Justin Fields a minute ago. What kind of success is Justin Fields having right now compared to Mac Jones? None. He's been an epic failure for the most part, and the Bears suck. Does that mean he's not going to have a good career? No, it doesn't mean that. But Mac Jones has stepped in and is succeeding. Is that his fault? Does that make him just a system quarterback? Or does that mean he stepped into a situation that had a good team around him with the best coach that put him in a better position to succeed? And would Justin Fields have the same success in the Patriots system? Maybe, maybe not. But there's a reason Bill Belichick drafted the guy that he did. And I go back to this point. When Tom Brady was Mac Jones, people called him a system quarterback. And after many, many years of that, Tom Brady almost like, without saying as much, was like, you know what? Fuck you. If Peyton Manning's going to go throw for 48, 50 touchdowns, I can do it too. You didn't think I could, but I'm going to show you that I can. And he did. He did. And then he left New England, and he did it with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at over 40 years old. A guy that was a system quarterback, right? Because there's no such thing as a system quarterback. There's talented players. There's players with less talent, and there's good coaches, and there's bad coaches. And the good coaches put the players in the best position to win. And the players with talent succeed in those scenarios, which is why Cam Newton didn't succeed with the Patriots last year. Because let's be honest, as we just saw with Carolina last week against the Dolphins, Cam Newton's talent isn't what it once was. Because if it was, don't you think he might have had more success with the Patriots last year? So I think it's a knock and an insult to Mac Jones to call him a system quarterback. And I'm speaking as a Dolphins fan. He's a good quarterback. He might be a great quarterback. And he's got a great coach. But don't call him a system quarterback. There's no such thing. There's no such thing. There might be some quarterbacks that aren't as good as other quarterbacks that win Super Bowls. They weren't system quarterbacks either. Maybe they were carried by the defense they were playing with. Like, I think of the 2000 Ravens, right? Right? Trent Dilfer. Was he a system quarterback, or was he just an okay guy that played on a team with a great defense? I don't think that made him a system quarterback. I don't think he had any more talent or any less talent. He just happened to be on a good team that won a Super Bowl, because it's also a team sport. I mean, that's my little rant about system quarterbacks. Fuck the system. What do you think?
Know what? Huh?
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you know what's funny?
What?
You and I generally, we disagree a lot. And the funny thing is I used to actually believe in the term system quarterback. But the more that I've kind of watched the game evolve, and the more that I've listened to things, and the more I've read into it, and the more I actually just listen to your rant, the more I have to totally agree with you, Aaron, because the bottom line to me is I think using the term system quarterback is almost like using the term hair metal. It's a derogatory term to kind of put down the quarterback that you're describing.
That's having success.
Actually admitting that a quarterback might be a decent NFL quarterback. And I agree, because I used to say about Tom Brady that he was a system quarterback. But in reality, if you really want to think about it, I hate the term altogether. But if you're going to use the term, then every quarterback's a system quarterback.
Yeah, because they're playing in that particular team system.
In their own system. So, exactly. Yes, I agree, Aaron. I've come full circle. I used to be that guy that you were speaking about that used to be like, Tom Brady, he's a friggin' system quarterback. But honestly, you're right. It's a stupid term. I don't know where it came from. Honestly, I think it was probably something that, someone just, a lot of times these terms.
I think it's one of those terms that definitely originated in the last 20 years.
It's just, I don't know if it had to do with analytics or what. I don't know what it's about. But the bottom line is, like I said, it's a derogatory term, because it's anytime I hear someone say, oh, well, that guy's a system quarterback, it's realistically, like I said, it's almost like using the term hair metal. Like, to me, I think that's derogatory. Like, people say hair metal because the guys had long hair, but in reality, it was glam metal. That's what they played.
There was no such thing as the term hair metal in real time. Hair metal was like a retroactive term to put the genre down.
Correct.
And system quarterback is a term to put good quarterbacks down. Dude,
so
let's think of a Hall of Famer. I'm a Dolphins fan. Bob Greasy, two-time Super Bowl champion, quarterback of the undefeated Miami Dolphins. Does not have gaudy stats, but he's in the Hall of Fame. I mean, was he a system quarterback, or was he just on a great team in that era that had a hard-nosed defense and a good running game? I mean, he was a good player.
I mean, if you're going to use terms to describe quarterbacks, how about you use the real terms? How about you use the tiers, like elite or good or average or backup?
Exactly. And you can decipher that whether or not the team's a winning or losing team, which is why I bring the Trent Dilfer example up. Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl in 2000. Did that make him an elite quarterback? No. But did it make him a system quarterback? No, it just made him the quarterback of the team he was on. And the system that they used with the defense that they had won them a championship. That's it.
Exactly.
That's it.
Dude.
That is it.
You just nailed it. Like, honestly,
it's ridiculous.
It's funny. I was like, when we were talking about doing this for the show, I was like, man, he's absolutely right. It is a stupid term. And I heard it again the other day. Someone was saying Mac Jones is a system.
Yeah, I heard it this morning. That's when I called you. I'm like, dude, I got a great topic for the show tonight.
It's absolutely, I agree. Hey, if there's people out there watching and you disagree, we'd like to see your comments, because I definitely think it's a dumb term. To me, like I said, if you're going to use it, then you need to say every quarterback is a product of their system. Yeah. Every quarterback runs a certain system because every team has a different system.
Exactly. And it's up to your coaches to put you in the position to win in the system that you run. So Bill Belichick could have drafted someone else, and they might not have succeeded in their system. So Mac Jones is good for that system, maybe, but does that make him a system quarterback? No.
Well, and I think the disconnect comes because a lot of people coming out of college were saying that Mac Jones is a pro-style ready quarterback. But to me, that means that he's not a quarterback that's going to take time to develop. He's going to come in and be able to play in the NFL. That's what pro-style quarterback means. Basically, he played in an offense in college that is kind of transferable to the NFL, where he's not going to have the issues of like, oh my God, like, you know what I'm saying? Like the issues that Justin Fields is having right now, because Justin Fields is on a horrible football team with a horrible coach.
And he's a less polished player.
Bad system.
And he's a less polished player.
But exactly. But Justin Fields could end up being a better quarterback than Mac Jones. It doesn't mean that Mac Jones is a system quarterback and Justin Fields is a failed quarterback. It just means right now, Mac Jones is in a system that works. Justin Fields is in a system that sucks.
Well, this is a whole other thing we can get into. Mac Jones, they said, was more pro-ready, right? Because Mac Jones is more of like a guy that's like a pocket quarterback, and he does seem like he's really good at the position in the way the position was historically defined. Whereas now you've seen a lot of guys drafted on athleticism. Kyler Murray comes to mind.
Absolutely.
Kyler Murray comes to mind. Guys aren't just drafted for their pocket skills. They're drafted for athleticism, running. Can they move in the pocket? Can we develop this player? You know, so, I mean, dude, it's not a knock on Mac Jones. It doesn't make him a system quarterback. It just makes him a good quarterback. It doesn't mean that Justin Fields won't be a good quarterback, but he's a less polished player that's more athletic. There's a way to describe these players, and it doesn't have to be a system quarterback. That's a knock on Mac Jones, and that's
definitely
wrong.
A derogatory term, and we both agree that it shouldn't be used. So,
yep. Anyway, brother, you know what time it is?
The
picks of the week. Anyway, who's going first this week, Jay?
You're up first this time because I went last week.
All right.
Or 2 weeks ago.
Anyway, dude. So, you know what? My pick of the week is an album. I don't know how, just recently. I had heard it when it came out a little bit. Didn't really hear it much, but I've been listening to it a lot more recently. And you know I'm a huge Guns N' Roses guy. So I don't know why I didn't listen to it more at the time, but here I am. And I'm talking about Dizzy Reed's 2018 album, Rock and Roll Ain't Easy. Dizzy Reed, he's the second longest standing member of Guns N' Roses outside of Axl. He's a keyboard player. Been there since the Illusions. It's a very solid record. I mean, am I going to say it's a great record? No. But if you like rock and roll and you like a Stonesy sound, Guns N' Roses sound at times, you're going to love this record. This Don't Look Like Vegas was a single. It's a very good song. I know they had put a video out at the time for Rock and Roll Ain't Easy, solid track. My favorite song on the record is called Fragile Water. It's definitely in that Guns N' Roses. It almost reminds me of something even Gilby Clarke could have done on one of his solo records. And who also a Guns N' Roses alum. But it's a really cool mid-tempo ballad, and it's got like a real solo that harkens back to the Chinese Democracy album. And I'm pretty sure Richard Fortus played the solo on that track. Richard Fortus plays guitar on a number of tracks. Tommy Stinson, also of Guns N' Roses alum, plays on the record. Also, I think Frankie Banali's on there on a couple tracks on the drums. So there's a lot of guests on the record. What's that?
So it's a kind of compilation of artists?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of guests on the record. It's an original album. It's not a cover album or a compilation album. It's an original album by Dizzy Reed.
He's got a lot of
guest musicians on it. He does all the vocals on it. He produced the record. He plays the keyboards. And it's a good record. I highly, highly recommend it. It's cool sometimes to hear the guys that are in the background doing their own thing and getting out there in the front and putting out their own music. So check it out. It's a 2018 album by Dizzy Reed, Rock and Roll Ain't Easy. It's definitely worth a listen. And again, my favorite track on the record is called Fragile Water. Check it out. What do you got, Jay?
Dude, I love Dizzy Reed, so I'm definitely going to be getting that.
Yeah, check it out. Definitely worth it.
I'll hit it up on Amazon. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, my pick of the week. For those of you who don't know, I've become a little kid this week. So I got a new car recently. My lease was up, and I got a new car. And with that car, along came a Sirius XM subscription. And let me tell you, folks, I'm like a little kid in a candy store because I just found like the Holy Grail. I mean,
yeah, Jay's late to the party with Sirius XM.
I am, but I'm telling you, I'm loving it. So anyway, needless to say, I happened to be listening to Sirius the other day, and a song came on, and it reminded me of this album that I had. It's not that I forgot about. It's just an album I haven't really heard in a long time. So this is actually an album that was part of the Red Truck playlist, which for those of you that don't know what the Red Truck playlist is, when Aaron and I were young, back in 1993, actually, I had a red pickup truck, and we used to cruise around looking for, chicks, hang out,
just hearing records.
Yes.
Yep. Hearing
albums. Anyway, there was a group of albums that we just kind of played the shit out of. We probably played it hundreds of times.
Yeah.
So anyway, my pick of the week is actually the album Coverdale Page.
Wow. Excellent.
David Coverdale and Jimmy Page. Ladies and gentlemen, this used to be one of my favorite albums when it came out. Aaron and I actually saw Page Plant in concert.
2 years later, yeah.
It was like a little bit after that. But this is an absolutely fantastic album. I love both artists. Obviously, it features David Coverdale from obviously Whitesnake, Deep Purple, and Jimmy Page, who doesn't really need any other explanation. He's Led Zeppelin. So, but the bottom line is this album has 11 tracks, and every single one of them is fucking awesome. Like, there's not one bad track. I love every single one of them. But if I did have to pick my favorite track on the album is actually Don't Leave Me This Way. And the reason for that is because I absolutely love Jimmy Page. He's the archetype for the long-winded blues solos. Those solos that are just like heartfelt solos. And you know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
I mean, it's just an absolute, obviously, like I said, the whole album's awesome, but I love Jimmy Page. And I especially love the songs when he goes on those long, as I said, winded solos and, just jams out. And that's what this album is about. It brings me back to my childhood. Absolutely. Anybody that loves Led Zeppelin or Whitesnake, because honestly, it has a little bit of elements of both. Because if you remember, obviously, David Coverdale was still in Whitesnake at the time. And to me, obviously, 1987, Whitesnake album to me is one of those giant albums. This album does have some of that style, but obviously, mixing it with Jimmy Page. And the other thing that's pretty amazing is that David Coverdale sounds like Robert Plant on a lot of the songs.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's why they did it. That's why they did it. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I know Robert Plant wasn't thrilled with it either.
Well, I know. I don't think he still is. But I do have some great news on it because I was actually going back and I was kind of, researching. They're going to be dropping the 30th anniversary. I read David Coverdale is going to drop it in 2023. So look for that because obviously right now it's out of print. Yeah,
it's the 30th anniversary. It came out in '93. Dude, I don't know if you were going to name any favorite tracks off the record, but my favorite are definitely "Shake My Tree" and "Pride and Joy."
Well, I did name mine. I said "Don't Leave Me This Way."
Oh yeah, you did.
But "Shake My Tree" is obviously like classic Led Zeppelin.
Oh, I love it.
Pride and Joy has that like.
No, take me to your river, baby. Take me to your sea.
Yeah. It's just a great album, folks. If you haven't checked it out, it's actually the only way you can listen to it right now is you have to buy the CD. So because it's out of print in the US and it's not on any streaming. I checked iTunes and Amazon. It's not on either. So if you don't have the CD, that's the only way right now. Or you can go to YouTube and listen to the album.
But it's always good to get a CD, you know.
Exactly.
So
before we go, I do want to make one plug of an event that I'm going to be attending tomorrow. So there is an event at Iceworks Skating Rink. It's for a buddy of mine who is Old City Sports Network. For those that don't know, it's a local podcast network that, I'm friends with the guy. And this benefit is for Jake Long's father, who has esophageal cancer. So I have all the information posted on my socials if you're interested in going. And if you can't, you're still able to donate. And if you can, please help. It's for a great cause, and just wanted to give them a shout out.
Yeah, tell us where that is again, Jay.
It's in Aston, PA, at Iceworks Skating Rink.
All right, check out Jay's socials. You'll get all the details on that. If you can, please donate. Be generous. If you can't go, you could still make a donation. All donations are greatly appreciated. Anyway, dude, it's been a great show as always.
Dude, any last things you want to shout out to our sponsors again?
Yeah, well, as always, we want to thank Manscaped, best MVPs of below the belt grooming. You want to go to their website, manscaped.com. You're going to use promo code S&M at checkout. That's the letters S&M for sports and metal. You're going to get 20% off, and you're going to get free shipping anywhere in the world. And it is the holidays. Hanukkah's here. Christmas is coming. Let's get it, guys. Let's get it. And ladies out there, there's watches. You can get your men. You can get one for yourself. Go to LaTerrain.com, LA-TOURAINE.com. La Terrain makes the most beautiful handcrafted watches. Same thing. You're going to use our promo code S&M. That's the letters S&M, like in that corner up there. See that? For sports and metal, and you're going to get 10% off. So that's pretty much it, dude. As always, it's been a great show. We hope everybody out there enjoyed it, and we look forward to seeing you guys next week. Rock on!
Peace out.
And that's our show. Tune in next time for more Sports and Metal with Jason Voorhees and Aaron Savage. Ooh, yeah! Got something to say? Hit us up at sportsandmetal0423 at yahoo.com or on Twitter at sportsandmetal.